StraightallDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself. It's going to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, you are looking for the minority, not the majority. Before we get into this and where that's going, let me remind everybody that every day I send out a daily motivation text message for free to everybody who's in my text community. This message will help you start your day being focused, sharp, and on point. If that sounds like the type of person you want to be, text me at this number, 305-384-6894. And every day when I send out the daily motivation, because you are a member of my text community, and only for that reason, you'll be receiving this message every day free of charge straight to your phone. You can even respond to any one of those texts, believe it or not, and you will maybe get a response from me, because I do go through those texts and respond to people's messages. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is the place where you take your next step to work with me. People ask me, well, Dre, I listen to your show. Is there any way to work with you directly? Is there any way I could talk to you on a regular basis? Do you offer anything like coaching or courses or programs or things like that? The answer is yes, 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 and yes. The answer to those, where, how, when, who, what, is Work on Your Game University. The way you get everything you need to join the university is by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. It's workonyourgameuniversity.com. That is where you take your next steps to work with me directly. Everything on that page is pretty self-explanatory. I made it as simple as possible, so even a caveman will understand what to do. And you are smarter than a caveman, so just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com and you'll know what to do next. Now, getting into the topic here today, you are looking for the minority, not the majority. This is really about your business marketing, first of all, and is also more specifically about your choosing of relationships in life, period, being that relationships are the lifeblood of what we do here in life, and that we're in this era of the power of relationships and the power of collaboration you heard me talk about, and associations. All right, that's what this is really about, and you can apply this to business as well as you apply it to your personal life. You're looking for the minority of people, not the majority of people. What does this mean? Let's talk about it. Point number one. Topic again, you're looking for the minority, not the majority. First point is this. Most people are average. This is just by definition. This is not Dre's theory. This is just by definition. Most people are average. That's how we get the average. That's how we get the bell curve. Most people are in the middle. When you're building your team, whether that's a business team, whether it's just a team of friends, when you're building your associations, people who know, like, and trust you, the people who you deal with most often, people who you want in your circle, do you want a bunch of people who maybe don't perform or think at your level? Do you want a bunch of average people around you? You want a bunch of people who are kind of not on the same level that you're on? Probably not. And the only way you will want that is if maybe it'll help you feel good, because you are probably going to be the smartest and most accomplished person in the group, and maybe I'll feel good for a little while, but eventually that new car smell of that situation might wear off pretty quickly, simply because those people can't perform at the level that you perform at. So is it really valuable to have those folks around you? That might feel good for a minute, but it ain't gonna feel good for long. I remember when I was in college, for example, there was a group of us who were all the same year in college, the same class, and we all hung out. It was about 4 or 5 of us hung out together at the beginning of our last year together in school. And one of the guys who was in our group, he stopped hanging with us after a few months. And the group that he started hanging with was a bunch of younger guys. They were all like freshmen. We were all seniors. He started hanging with a bunch of freshmen. And it seemed to me, now this guy never actually said this out of his mouth, but it seemed to me that he liked hanging with those guys because hanging with them, he could be the star of the group. But when he hung with us, nobody was really the star, because we were all relatively equal in terms of like status. We all knew a whole bunch of people. We all got a similar amount of attention. But when he hung with them, he was the star, because they were all nobody freshmen, and we were all seniors who were pretty well known in the area. So it may feel good for a while to hang with those people. The problem is, you can't lean on any of those individuals because they don't have the same skill set that you have. All right? They can't sharpen your sword because they're not as sharp as you are. So, on the other hand, are you looking for the exceptional individuals who are above and beyond most people? You should be looking for them. And I'm going to tell you why. Because by definition, there are fewer exceptional people than there are average people. Again, look at the bell curve. Bell curve is when you got a few people at the bottom, you got a whole bunch of people in the middle, and a few people at the top. Most of the people are in the middle. Those are the average individuals. The exceptional people, the people at the top, there's a small number of them, but a whole bunch of people in the middle. So that's why I would call them the minority and not the majority. So if you understand where this language is coming from. And when I say the minority, I'm talking about the minority at the top, not the minority. There's also a minority at the bottom. You don't want those people. You want the minority at the top. Now, I told you how somebody once mentioned to me that when they go to a networking event, maybe 150 people in attendance, but they're only trying to meet 5 people. It's 5 people in this room I need to meet. Now, I might shake hands with 70 people, but I'm really trying to meet about 5 of them. Average people do have their use. Or there is a time that average people can be used, but they're not to be used in everything that you do. Some of you may have heard the saying that if you don't have plans for your life, then someone who does have plans will use you to execute their plans. And if you're one of those people, those are where the average people get used. Exceptional people, the minority, people at the top of the bell curve, they make plans for their lives, they have strategies and systems to execute, and they hold themselves accountable because they have the right mindset to do so. These are all things you learn and work when you get in university, by the way. And when exceptional people have these things in place, what they do is they realize they probably shouldn't do everything on their own because they don't have the time or the talent to do everything on their own. They'll run out of time and they'll run out of energy trying to do everything by themselves. So they're like, man, I need to get some extra people in here who can execute my plans for me. I'll just tell them what to do, show them what to do. All they had to do is execute the plans that I've already laid out. Where do I find these people? That's when they go grab a whole bunch of average people and they put the average people in place to do and execute on the plan that the exceptional person created. If none of you have ever heard of this process before, let me give you a more common name for it so that you understand it. It's called a job. J-O-B. That's what a job is, by the way. When you are employed, you are working for a company that was created by somebody or multiple somebodies who came up with a plan and a strategy to achieve some level of success. They needed some hands and eyes and brains and bodies who could go and execute their plan so that they didn't have to do everything on their own, so they could achieve a scale and they could do a whole bunch of it on a large scale. So they went and found a whole bunch of human beings to execute their plans for them, and they pay them a small percentage of what they're actually helping them produce, and that's called employment, and that's called a job. Understand, if you work at a job right now, I'm not knocking you. You're not a bad person for having a job. My parents had jobs. Most of the people in my family are employees and they have jobs. I'm not knocking you for doing it. But understand, when you work at a job, whatever they are paying you, understand you are producing more than what they're paying you, because if you are making more than what you are producing, then eventually you will get fired because you're costing the company money. Only reason that you are able to maintain a job and keep a job is because whatever you're producing for the company, they are making more than they're paying you. So no matter how much you're getting paid, even if you're a highly paid employee who's making more than the average employee, you're making more than everybody else on the job, understand the company is still making more money off of you than you are making off of them. And if it ever gets to the point that you're making more off of them than they are comfortable with, what they'll do is hire someone who is making a lot less than you. They will assign you to train that new person, to teach them everything you know, and then as soon as they know enough of it, they'll fire you and keep that person who's making 1/5 of your salary. That's how employment works. And if you don't believe me, ask somebody who's been fired in that exact same situation. They will co-sign everything that I just said, and you won't have to look far to find one of them. And some of you are on your way to being that person who gets fired next. Believe me now, or you can believe me later. Moving on, point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is you are looking for the minority, not the majority. Number 2, a few exceptional people are worth more than a lot of mediocre people. This is basically the 80-20 principle embodied. You want to see 80-20 principle in human beings, just understand this point that I'm making. Remember that 80% of results are produced by 20% of the people in any space. So if you look at something like the workspace, you look at it in a place where people are employed. Any of you who's working at a job, you might be at work right now. Any of you who's at work right now, 80% of the results on your job are produced by 20% of the people who work there. Now, I don't know if you're one of the 20% that's producing most of the results, or you're one of the 80% that's producing 20% of the results. Either way, eventually your head's going to be on that chopping block, because either A, because you're in the 80% that produces 20% of the results and you are just not producing enough, they're going to get rid of you because they could easily find anybody to take your spot. And maybe year over year you get a raise, and they're like, well, we got to keep giving this person a raise. They're part of 80%. Well, we just hire somebody else at the entry level position, salary, and they can do the same work that you're doing, so you'll get fired for that. Or on the other hand, and there's other reasons you get fired being in 80%, but let's say you're in the 20% and you're one of the higher performing people there. And because you're one of the higher performing people there, They have to pay you more because you can show them proof, logically and rationally, why you should make more money because of your production on the job. And they agree with you. They give you more money and more money and more money because your production on the job. Eventually, they're like, all right, we're paying this person a little bit too much. Why don't we replace them with someone else who could do their level of work for half the money because they're new. They ain't been around for 20 years like you have, and they'll replace you because of that. So either way, eventually you'll be gone. All right, but in life situations, I'm using employment here as an example because it happens to be a good example that all of you can understand. In life, period, whether we're talking running a business, whether you're an employee, just in life, period, when you're dealing with human beings, you are looking for the 20% of people who are producing 80% of the outcomes. You're looking for these individuals. These are the people who you want to connect with. These are the people you want in your circle. These are the people you want to be friends with. I've talked about never lowering your standards. Let me tell you what episode that was, because I was actually just talking about this. I talked about it in episode 1974, and I also talked about it in episode 1331 about not lowering the standards of what you do. When you lower the bar of standards in anything you do in life, what happens is you lose all the high performing people. The 20% who produce 80% of the results, they leave when you lower the bar of standards, because when you lower the bar of standards, the fact that they're in the 20% matters less because the standards aren't there anymore. So they don't stand out the way that they stood out back when you had higher standards. And they don't like that because high performing people, every human being, whether high performing, mediocre, low performing, whatever, human beings love to be recognized. And high performing people want recognition for the fact that they are a high performing individual. They want you to know that they are high performers. They want to know that you know that they're high performers. And if you don't recognize them for that, and or you diminish the value of their high performance, they will leave and go somewhere else where their high performance is actually appreciated. So this is why being a high performing individual matters a lot. And this is why you want to get around these people and you want to keep them around you in life. You're looking for these people who are producing most of the outcomes. So back to what I was saying here, when you lower the bar of standards, the high performers will leave because they're no longer getting the recognition that they want for being a high performer. When, on the other hand, you raise the bar of standards, what happens is you lose all the low-level performers. You lose the bums. You lose the underachievers. They leave because they either cannot or don't want to live up to the standards of that raised bar. Everybody follow what I'm saying here? Now, here's what you got to understand. Remember that we're talking about the 80-20 rule. And the 80-20 rule is in numbers as well as it is in performance. Meaning, in the 20%, there are much fewer people than there are in the 80%. If we just did it by simple ratio, we kept the number simple. For every 4 average performers, you get 1 high performer. So if you got 100 people in your organization, there are 80 mediocre performers, but only 20 high performers. So when you eliminate all the mediocre performers, you only got 20 people left. You don't have a 100-person payroll anymore. You only got 20 people on your payroll. So there's a lot more elbow room for everybody simply because there are fewer people. So there are fewer people, but they are higher performers. This is the embodiment of what the 80-20 is about. So when you raise those standards, the low-level people will eliminate themselves, or the standards will eliminate them relatively quickly because they're not going to be able to live up to what it is. So when I say you're looking for the minority and not the majority, understand that when you're dealing with the minority, your circle will be much smaller than a person who is dealing with the majority. A person who has a lot of average people around them will have a lot more people in their circle than you, even though you have higher performing people, simply because there are fewer of them and you don't need as many of them to produce the same level of output. Everyone follow what I'm saying there? Good. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is you're looking for the minority, not the majority. Here's a disclaimer to everything that I've said so far today. Disclaimer is you attract what you are. So, in order for any of this that I've shared here today to actually work, you must be one of the exceptional individuals that I'm discussing. All right, we're talking about these 20% of people that produce 80% of the results. You have to be a 20%er in order to attract 20%ers into your world. If you're an 80%er individual, 20%ers will not want to be around you because 80%ers and 20%ers are like oil and water. They don't mix. I don't want to hang around 80% individuals. I don't want to hang around mediocre, average individuals. I want to hang around high-performing people because I'm a high-performing individual. You attract what you are. So I don't even have to be thinking about this. It just naturally will occur. Average people cannot attract and keep exceptional people around them because you and they are not on the same wavelength. You're not on the same level of thinking. Your mindsets will not match, and you won't be able to stay around each other simply because you're not thinking the same way. You're not vibrating on the same frequency. It's just not going to work. Eventually, somebody's going to see their way out of that relationship, and the other person's not going to go looking for them because it wasn't working anyway. Your energies are incongruent. Everyone understand me? To attract the minorities, those 20% people, the people who are different than almost everybody else, you personally had to be different than almost everybody else. You had to be a member of the 20% in order to attract members of the 20%. Is the fact that you're a 20%er obvious? Can people clearly see it? Are you holding yourself to the same standards are you holding yourself to the standards that keep you in the 20%? Are you continually doing things that keep you in that 20% level? Aristotle said, you are what you repeatedly do. At least he says something like that. He's credited with saying it. Let's put it that way. All right, what are you repeatedly doing? If someone didn't know you and they were just observing your actions, let's say there was a camera just watching you all day, every day, looking at your actions, would it be obvious to someone who does not know you and has never had a conversation with you that you are a member of the 20% who produces 80% of the results? If you're not sure, here's my suggestion to you. You need to make sure that your actions reflect clearly, without you explaining it, that you are a member of the 20%. That you're one of those people who produces at a high level and you do so consistently, and you're one of those people that if a 20%er was looking for a friend, looking for somebody to talk to, you're one of the people they would want to have a discussion with. That's what you want to make sure your actions, your habits, your standards, your everyday way of living needs to be a reflection of that. Because if somebody else looked at you and looked at your actions, they should know, oh, this person's in the 20%. This is one of those 20% individuals. These are one of the people that I need to hang with. And people may not be able to tell the first time they look at you because who knows? They may not know what part of you that they're catching. They may be catching you at a certain time. A 5-minute glimpse might not be enough to get something. It's like if somebody took a 30-second clip out of this episode, they might not know what I'm talking about because they don't get the full context. But if someone was looking at you over an extended period of time, they should be able to tell that you're in that 20%. And you should be able to tell. If you don't know if you're in the 20% yet, I'm going to help you out. You're not. All right, if you are in the 20%, you know. And your actions will be a reflection of it. With all that said, let's recap today's class, which is you are looking for the minority, not the majority. This is about your relationships and your associations in life, whether you're using it for business, personal, or anything in between. Number one, most people are average. So when you are building your associations, you want a bunch of average people. Remember, by definition, there are fewer exceptional people than there are average people. That's why we call this the minority. Average people do have their use. They usually get used by exceptional people to execute the exceptional person's plans. Point number two, a few exceptional people are worth more than a whole bunch of mediocre people. That's why we had an 80-20 principle. 80% of the results are produced by 20% of the people. So those 20% of people can produce more outcomes than 80% do all put together. And when you raise the standards, you eliminate the low-level folks. When you lower the standards, you eliminate the high-level folks. So there'll be fewer people, but higher-performing people, and they can get a lot more done with smaller numbers. Number three, the disclaimer to all of this is that you attract what you are. So in order for any of this to work, you must be one of the exceptional individuals that we're discussing here. You can't attract exceptional individuals and keep them around you if you are not one of them, because your energy and their energy are not on the same wavelength. There's a large incongruence in energies between them and you, and in ways of thinking and lifestyles and all of that stuff, and it's not going to last. Those relationships do not last long. So make sure you are the type of person who you're trying to bring into your life, one of those minorities and the top of the bell curve, that 20%. All that said, text me so you can get a daily motivation message that I send out every day free of charge, guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. My number is 305-384-6894, and Work on Your Game University is the place you go to take the next step with me. You want to join that 20%? Would you like to associate with other 20% individuals? Would you like to know that you are in a world connected, full of 20%ers, so that you know you are associating with the right type of people who can help you get to the level that you want to be at? Then what you need to do is go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, and let's take our next steps and get you where you need to be ASAP. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.